All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets that we have today in NBA on both Prize Picks and Underdog. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we do have one kind of island game today. It's going to be the Nets versus Clippers. We can see that Nets a little bit banged up, but not really. And then looking at the Clippers, Zubac is still going to be out for them. And we look at the prop bets that we're getting for them. Really, the best one that we're going to get is going to be Paul George for over his fantasy score at 54% of the edge right there. We can see the average sportsbook line would have it favored at about 39.5, and then given that about a 53% chance to it. So at 38.5, that is a decent edge that we are getting there. And if you look at it, Paul George is someone that consistently does get over this number. He's someone that typically does average about 40 fantasy points per 36. As long as the game stays close, you should be able to get the over there. Matchup is a little bit more difficult, but all in all, that shouldn't matter too much. The biggest issue with the Clippers is it really can be Kawhi Leonard one game, it can be James Harden one game, but for the most part, Paul George has been the most consistent of those of the three. So all in all, I'm perfectly fine betting that. We can see after that though, really tight after that. I mean, James Harden for over 8.5 assists, you could run out. Kawhi Leonard potentially for under his fantasy score, you could run out. But to me, those prop bets that we are getting are a little bit too tight. So let's go ahead and move on into the other side of this game. We got the Brooklyn Nets. And so looking at the Brooklyn Nets, we are getting DFS for under his fantasy score. 19.5 is what the average sportsbook line would have it set at. And so I don't exactly love that. The data is telling us about the under at 18.5. And you got to remember that Duron Sharp is out, and occasionally Finney Smith is someone that will get some backup center minutes as well. So like if Nick Claxton were to get into foul trouble, then we could potentially see Finney Smith step up into the 5 role, and then he gets a little bit more minutes. All in all, I do agree that more likely than not, he's going to get the under here. Not a lock and load bet. Again, I never like to say a bet is the lock and load bet, but all in all, two decent bets that we are getting in that game. From there, we are seeing Nick Claxton for under rebounds and assists at 13.5. That has about a 53% chance to hit. Nick Claxton for over 35 for a fantasy score seems massive. And the reason why that is because he's projected to get 32 minutes. Again, with Sharp out, it does somewhat make sense. And I'm wondering if the Plumlee defense has a factor in that as well. We're not getting any props for Plumlee, but for Claxton, like, I'm okay with this. The only issue that I have with him is one, he's been a thorn in my side this season. He's someone that I really like as a player. Just the minutes haven't been there. He's been a little bit too hit or miss, especially like on days in which he like stands out as a good prop bet. He typically does not produce, and then the exact opposite the other way. So I'm staying away from it. I will say if he is getting 34 minutes, he should be able to get over 35 fantasy for a fantasy score. A little bit of that's predicated on him getting a block. But I do want to move on to the next game. We got Miami versus Orlando. Wagner is still probably going to be out for Orlando. Looking at Miami, they are going to be without Hatka still. Hero is expected to play. And for me, I agree with the data here. Like, we have some decent prop bets, but all in all, not prop bets that I personally feel like we need to go out of our way to target. If you guys like any of these, if any of these stand out to you, by all means, you can run with it. We are seeing a lot of the overs are being, slightly favored for Miami. By all means, if you guys like that, that's fine. But the matchup with Orlando is not one that I particularly have been trying to target. Man, Jalen Suggs at 16.5 for points, rebounds, and assists. That does seem extremely low. And so looking at Jalen Suggs, to me, this line does seem to be extremely low, but it's low because one, the matchup, he struggled the last time out against Miami, but it's also going to be the projected minutes. Only projected to get 27 minutes, and to me, or 28 or so. To me, that does seem to be a little bit too high as well. I will say if his fantasy score comes out to about 20.5, that might be interesting to me, because when we look at the other lines that we're getting for him, we're getting his blocks and steals at 1.5, his turnovers as well. But if he gets 2 stocks and if he gets 2 turnovers, that's still plus 4 points in the fantasy score. So all in all, that could be a route that we're going. But again, that's a very low line, but it is a low line for 2 reasons. One, Fultz is bad, and 2, it's a tough matchup. So I could see staying away from that. The next spot I want to get into is actually going to be Washington versus Denver. And I want to point out Marvin Bagley. He has been someone that has been pretty good for Washington thus far. The issue with a player like this is, like, I'm going to talk him up and we might not even get prop bets for him. That's the unfortunate side of it. And this would have been a huge edge the last 2 slates. It's someone that I was calling out as someone that would really crush, especially if he started. If he's getting 36 minutes, guys, he's going to crush. Now, it is a difficult matchup against Denver. He could get into foul trouble as well. Man, even if he gets like 25 to 30 minutes, he's going to crush his averages, most likely. and this is with Daniel Gafford still being out, I really don't mind him. I want to get some props on him. I do. Like, one, we got to confirm Gafford's going to be out. That's probably why we haven't got any Bagley props just yet, but I want to get some props from him because I think that's going to be a good edge for us. But looking at the rest of the Washington props that we are getting Jordan Poole for under fantasy score. That's one I don't think I need to talk anyone into or out of. Jordan Poole has been someone that's been a little bit too inconsistent on a per game basis. You get him in a matchup against Denver, a game that they are expected to get blown out in. I don't mind that. Now, he has been playing somewhat better recently. Is that really because they got rid of 2 players? I don't think so. But yeah, he has been playing better recently. I bet a lot of people are going to see this and not want to bet it, and I get that. Personally, I see today's slate as we have 3 pretty good bets right now. Kawhi Leonard over fantasy score, DFS for under, and then Poole for under fantasy score. From there, we are seeing Denny and Tyus Jones as decent over fantasy score prop bets. And I feel like we know the story with those two. It's that if the game does stay close, one, those two are going to be part of the reason as to why, and thus they're going to get the over fantasy score. Especially with Tyus Jones, that seems to heavily correlate. And he is someone over the past 4 games has been there, but like he is someone that is super consistent. Like we can almost, I don't want to say lock in him getting to 20 for a fantasy score, but it almost feels like that. And then it's just whether or not the game stays close. And tough to say. Washington is obviously Washington and they're not a good team, but all in all, those are a couple of decent prop bets. And then another one, I don't want to touch Kuzma for under his fantasy score either. Yeah, that's interesting how low it is, though. Going against Denver, let's see the prop bets that we are getting for them. And yeah, for them as well, we are getting Jamal Murray for over fantasy score, 42.5. We can see the average sportsbook line would be set at 43.3. Now, this is a very good matchup, and I think that's the biggest point of emphasis I want to call it, that it's a very good matchup. And he is someone that, even in games that have been blowouts, he is still getting 30-plus minutes. I think Detroit is a good comp, and he went off against Detroit. And so what we're looking for is, well, him to be part of the reason as to why the game's blowing out. Now that is kind of risk reward based in a matchup like this where you can kind of assume that the opponent's going to get blown out, that Jamal Murray's team is going to be doing the blowing out, and you're just kind of betting on which players are going to be the biggest reason as to why, and hopefully the production isn't too spread out. All in all, very good matchup for him. All in all, I do expect him to get the over here, but it is only about a 53.8% chance, so not the best. KCP at 22.5, that is a little bit higher than is normal, so I can see why the data is favoring the under there, but not a great one. From there, turnovers for Jamal Murray, under 2.5. I think that does coincide with him somewhat getting over his fantasy score, so that goes hand in hand. Joker's fantasy score is at 56.5. Again, if he's part of the reason as to why this game's blown out, I don't mind that, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to go ahead and attack that. So let's go ahead and jump on into the next game. We got Boston versus Houston, and I do think it's worth calling out that Drew Holiday, currently a game time decision, he is expected to play. And then also Al Horford, game time decision. If he sits, that'll lead to a couple more minutes for really all the starters, a little bit more production to Derek White, a little bit more production to Porzingis, and it is an okay matchup going against Houston. But really, this seems like a game that I don't want to be targeting, and the data is agreeing. Now, we are only getting Jaylen Brown and Tatum props right now. That could change. Obviously, that depends on Al Horford and Drew Holiday. Again, Drew Holiday is expected to play, so, we'll see. And then looking at guys, we're not getting any Houston props just yet. That's a little bit shocking to me. Tough to say what to do. I think that might be partially due to Al Horford being questionable and the other players questionable. That's going to be the same case for the next game, Pacers versus the Suns. Haliburton, game time decision. Andrew Nembhard, game time decision. If those two players sit, well, one, Buddy Hield's going to get a big bump in his usage, as well as Pascal Siakam. And now we are only getting Haliburton props right now, but I do think it's worth calling out that this could be a really good spot for Siakam. One, if we get news that Haliburton's going to sit, that kind of leaves Siakam as the number one here. He got into a little bit of foul trouble in the game against Portland. Still had a pretty good game there, but I think it's worth noting that Isaiah Jackson's going to be out as well. He is someone that, sure, the last 2 games was not getting minutes, and not every game is he getting minutes, but he does get at least a little bit of run, at least 8 minutes or so, sometimes 20. So we might see Jalen Smith get a slight more amount of run, and then maybe Miles Turner gets a little bit more run. Now, he finally had a very good game, but to me, I see that production going to Pascal Siakam now. We could see maybe Obi Toppin get a little bit more run, but we didn't see that in the last game. It does seem like Siakam is going to be the guy. That being said, Buddy Hield finally played a lot of minutes in the last 2 games, 36. And so if he's going to continue to get a lot of run, again, Andrew Nembhard being out would be part of the reason as to why, but he is someone that we could look at his props being a little bit too low, because we know when he is on the court, he's going to be shooting the basketball a bunch. And then obviously if Haliburton's going to be out, his minutes should be locked in. Now, it's not the best matchup against Phoenix, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, kind of a fun game. Looking at Phoenix, guys, they're going to be pretty healthy. And with that, we're not really getting any big edges because of the injuries. Now, Jusuf Nurk for over 32.5 for a fantasy score is one that I don't mind. Bol being out's okay. Like that doesn't hurt Jusuf Nurk. It doesn't really help him either, but you don't have to worry about, backup center getting too much run. He is someone that we have seen consistently getting a decent amount of run. And again, in this game, I think he's going to be closer to 30 minutes. But the data disagrees with that, just so you know. He's projected to get 28 minutes. So there is that concern. But if he does get 28 minutes, all the data points basically say that he should be able to get the over. Then from there, Grayson Allen has been very hot. Like if you guys want to run out his fantasy score, you could. It's definitely points dependent there. Seeing a slight discrepancy for Devin Booker, 0.5 difference between underdog and prize picks. Like that's an okay line there. Bradley Beal over fantasy score, that's low. All in all, I think we might get some stacking opportunities here. Obviously, this is a pace up spot for Denver. And that's why I don't mind the idea of stacking. Nurk for over fantasy score, Grayson Allen potentially, but then you could potentially run it back with Siakam, maybe Buddy Hield, if that opportunity presents itself. And now for the last game, it's going to be Portland versus the Lakers. We have a lot of players that are questionable. Simon sat out in the last game. Malcolm Brogdon really went off, as you would expect, especially with Scoot Henderson getting a concussion in that game, and then Sharp getting out in that game as well. So Malcolm Brogdon really should be someone that crushes today. And then Jeremy Grant is very much shot dependent, but you'd also expect him to have a good game. Now, it does seem like Anthony Davis is a true game time decision, as is LeBron. I'm going to assume that's due to this game being a potential blowout. And so we look at the props that we're getting. We are only getting Anthony Davis props because, well, if he sits, LeBron's lines go up by a massive amount. Austin Reeves' lines go up. D'Angelo Russell's lines go up. Russell is someone that should have a good game. He's been playing pretty well. Reeves, again, if LeBron or AD sits, he's going to be someone that really benefits a lot as well. If his numbers are at his averages, bet the over there because one, it's a good matchup, but two, he gets a huge increase in usage. Looking at Portland, again, we're only getting Simon's props because, well, it makes sense. He's currently a game time decision. If he were to sit, we are looking at Malcolm Brogdon to just go off like he did in the last game, 37 minutes in that game. Now, it was a good matchup against Indy. He was able to take advantage of that matchup, but really, we have seen this. We saw this at the beginning of the season where he was just super consistent during the same stretch where Scoot Henderson wasn't playing much or he was out. Sharp was out. Simons was out. And so even if Simons is active, he's going to be someone that I think we are looking at prop-wise. It is pure speculation as to what the lines will be. Just know that he is someone that should step up. And then looking at Jeremy Grant, guys, Grant is someone that is going to shoot the basketball a ton. We know that. 28 shot attempts in the last game, 26 the time before that. That is what you should expect if Simons is out. Now, if Simons is active, there's a little bit of usage that is being soaked up there. Actually, a lot of usage that's being soaked up. But with Sharp still out, with Scoot Henderson still out, Jeremy Grant is still going to shoot the ball probably 20 plus times. So he is someone that, honestly, if his points prop is at or slightly above his average, like if it's at 23.5, I'd probably still bet the over there because he is someone that should be able to produce in this situation. Jabari Walker is someone that's going to get a little bit more run as well. It seems like they're shifting to a slightly bigger unit. So he's not terrible. And then DeAndre Ayton, worth mentioning, going to get 30 minutes in this game. If Anthony Davis is out, he should be able to crush as well. But that's tough to say what we should do because we don't have that news just yet. Now, I do want to call it a pretty big discrepancy that we are getting, guys, in tennis. We never see this big of a discrepancy in aces. So this is a very good middling opportunity. So Prize Picks has Herbert's aces at 20, whereas Underdog has it at 17.5. That is a very big difference. So I do think that is going to be a good opportunity for us to do some middling prop bets. Middling is basically when there is a big prop line difference, you're hoping that the prop bets land in the middle. Now, we're not getting any good golf prop bets just yet as well. I don't think we're going to get any. Yesterday was very awesome to have that edge on Underdog. Really made for a good day yesterday in general with Jason Day getting overstrokes on Underdog and then also Ricky Fowler. I was able to pair that up with Brad for both of them, which was really nice to be able to do that. But yeah, we're not really getting any of those edges today. And college basketball wise, we're not really getting any big prop edges either. So it's a little bit unfortunate there. Some slight edges seemingly on Underdog. So I'll show you guys that just in case you want to play some bets on Underdog. I'm mostly going to be doing a Prize Pick slip, I think. I'll show you guys the NFL props that we are currently getting. But yeah, Underdog, this one's decent for Jackson. We can see the average sportsbook line is at 17.5. The projection data has it set at 19 for his PRA. Prize Picks has bumped it up to a half. That's probably the correct line in this situation, so not terrible. This is an interesting one as well. David Jones for over 21.5 points. The average sportsbook line would be favoring the under at 23.5, but the projection data likes them to get about 24.8. So again, a decent edge that we were getting there. Nothing too crazy. I wish we were getting fantasy score props here. And then real quickly, I do want to show you guys NFL. I did come out with the NFL video specifically, so check that out for today's games. But looking at it, guys, this is a small difference that we are getting here between Prize Picks and Underdog for MVS. This is one catch for him, pretty much getting the over. I don't like looking at receiving yards though, so I'm going to take that off. And so from there, this is what the data likes. You guys are probably well aware, Justin Watson over fantasy score. That one's been there for quite a while. That's on a bet slip that we need Justin Watson to get over for a fantasy score and Chris Godwin to get under 5.5 receptions. And then we hit a 6 for 6, I believe. It might be a 5 for 5, whatever. We hit a full slip there. So hoping that hits. And we are still getting some good tackles and assist props. These three right here were all props I thought would be bumped, but they haven't been. So interesting there. Sam Laporta for under 4.5 receptions is a good EV bet that we are getting right now. Trey Palmer for over his fantasy score is still there. Isaiah Pacheco, his rush attempts was one that we had at 14.5. So I'm fine with betting at 15. The projection data likes him to get 17.8, but again, don't feel the need to do that. Yeah, Justin Watson over fantasy scores, Khalil Shakir over fantasy score. Those are the two best ones that we were getting right now as well. And then hockey-wise, we were getting some good prop bets the other day. Really the last few days. To me, the lines that we are getting right now are all okay, but nothing seems to be egregiously mispriced. I don't need to go out of my way to target any of them. The one that I'll call out is going to be Cam Anderson for over his shots on goal. And that's simply because, one, the average sportsbook line is favoring the over, about 53% chance for that to hit. But also, it's the fact that the projection data allows him to get 3.4. So that does seem to be a pretty big edge there. But that's really the only one I could toss in there. To me, I like calling that out because maybe there's 5 bets that you guys really like and you don't want to run out a 5 slip bet, you want to run out a 6 slip bet. This is an opportunity then to use a prop bet like that. All right, so getting into the bet of the day today, I do want to call it that if you didn't want to take the middling opportunity with tennis here, where if you are placing this bet, you're also placing on underdog, and you could pair it up with maybe Cam Atkinson. You know, there's a lot of other EV bets that you could run out there for underdog by all means. But if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to use the middling opportunity, you could toss in Jamal Murray for over fantasy score. That was another one that popped up that was pretty good. And by all means, I think that's a good prop bet. I went with Cam Atkinson for over 2.5 shots on goal. One, because I do like it, but it was that exact situation where I just mentioned where I had a 5 slip bet. I wanted to make it a 6 slip bet. And so with that, I like these two. These are 2 of the better prop bets that we're currently getting. And then I'm running with the 2 best NFL prop bets that we are currently getting. If you guys didn't want to use fantasy score prop bets, I get that. We had the Badgley kicking points and then the 2 other players for tackles and assists that you could toss in there as well. It is a limited board right now across the board. I mean, it's kind of typical on Sundays, especially now with NFL, slowing down. These are going to be the boards that we get on Sundays. So typically speaking, it's Sundays were one of our best days. Now they might start to be very hit or miss, as kind of like Mondays have been. So proceed with a little bit of caution. Yesterday, Saturday, because we had less NBA or NFL games, the NFL slip went, or the NFL bets went 5 for 9, which obviously not a bad ratio. We'll take that. But like with the reduced amount of prop bets that we are getting on NFL and really NBA today, we just have less props to choose from. So this is the bet slip for now. Again, if you guys want to find more database bets that are good bets, head on over to 9to5sports.com. They'll give you access to the 9to5 Prize Picks and Underdog cheat sheets for just $10 a month. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. That does help out the channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss out on any of the coverage. Thank you guys for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.